Two, one.
Welcome. You have landed on the Daily Objective from the Ayn Rand Center UK. Jonathan Hoenig from capitalistpig.com, joining you from, as they say, the news capital of the world, not jolly old England, but Chicago, Illinois. However, we're domiciled in jolly old England, and we've got a philosophy apostrophe joining us right now in the super chat. I see crowding in from truly all over the globe. And philosophy is objectivism is philosophy for living on Earth. We've got people already from Robert on down on the super chat joining us from Earth today to learn about objectivism. That's what we're doing all day and every day here on the Daily Objective and on the Ayn Rand Center UK. We're students of objectivism. We're bringing you some of the brightest minds in objectivism. People like James Valiant, Harry Binswanger, Don Watkins, Nikos Theodorakopoulos, and so many others, and engaging in some of the most interesting and I think provocative issues of the day. Everything from aesthetics and even politics. Now, those of you who've been fans of the Daily Objective, and I know we've got dozens, if not maybe just a dozen out there, know that I have tended to try to stay away from politics. I'm more interested in aesthetics. I'm more interested in really any other branch of philosophy than politics. But I'm going to bring you some political perspectives today, always from an objectivist point of view and hopefully influenced by objectivism. But we're going to talk a little bit about not just politics, but presidential political slogans. Robert has already gotten us started in the super chat today. Robert says, Ayn Rand Center UK is mega, making Earth great again. I like that a lot. I like that a lot. And obviously objectivism is making our lives great again and making our lives better again. I mean, objectivism is not about winning a bet with your friends or predicting the next presidential election, but enjoying life more, thinking about your life more, getting more out of your life, living in the best sense. We're going to talk a little bit today, as I said, about politics and about political slogans, and not just signage, but in particular, when I say slogans, I mean those catchphrases, those kind of things that are up on a bumper sticker or up on a placard or up on a postcard that the candidate really kind of pushes and it becomes synonymous with who they are. So we're going to take, a little bit of a critical, but also somewhat of a sassy look at some of the biggest political slogans in history, going from contemporary, we're going to go backward, starting with the one that everyone speaks of and thinks of, most notably recently is Trump's "Make America Great Again." The irony is, of course, it's been it's known Trump, that was used previously than Trump. Reagan used it in 1980 briefly. And my 2 cents on "Make America Great Again," hated it. And here's why. Make America great again with what ideas? What is behind it? It reminds me of Miss Rand's, I won't say diatribe, her criticism of the conservatives. What are the conservatives seeking to conserve? So this notion of make America great again, conserving what, that's was always my take of Trump's making America great again, with what ideas? Now, oftentimes the ideas expressed in these political campaigns, they're god awful too. Bill de Blasio ran for president in 2020. Working people first. Hated it. I mean, it's so blatantly insulting to anyone. I mean, this whole notion that working people, well, if you work with your mind, he's not talking about you. Working people is only people who work with their hands. It's so insulting. It's so purposely divisive. How can you not hate it? And of course, Bill de Blasio's campaign thankfully went nowhere at all. This is one that you might have missed last time around. Andrew Yang was a Democratic presidential candidate in, I guess, 2020. His slogan, one of his slogans was "Not left, not right, but forward." Now, what do you think? What would be would you hated it or would you love it? I said, that's hot. Now, not Andrew Yang per se, but I like the way that this slogan seemed to focus on breaking conventional party lines and thinking. I mean, breaking today what I would describe as this tribalism. You're either on this side or that side. And I appreciate how Yang's comment here hopefully seemed to try to kind of break through that diatribe or that false alternative. Not left, not right, not forward. And of course, Yang's ideas were backward, they were regressive, but I thought that was pretty hot in terms of breaking the conversation and making it a little bit more ideological and challenging the norms. Robert's evaluating guests. The UBI went nowhere. The Universal Basic Income Net went nowhere. Andrew Yang went nowhere, but that was a slogan that I thought could have had some legs. Now, was there anything more insulting than "I'm with her" with Hillary Clinton? Hated it. I mean, it's just so. You have to remember, I think that was a different time when the whole thing was to drum up the fact, I suppose, that you were the first female or the leading. One of the cool things about Obama, I always felt, watching Obama's rise, even from here in Chicago, was that Obama, his race was never the issue. He had good character, at least in the mind of many. Maybe not good politics or ethics, but he was a good character. And maybe "I'm with her" would work a little bit better now because it's more, I guess, cool to be, I'm the beginning of the first woman, first this, first that. I mean, that kind of tribalism or collectivism is a little more appropriate now, but hated it at the time. Hated it at the time. Now, here's one you probably missed, and I want to take this opportunity to invite you to participate in our conversation. Tell me what you liked, tell me what you didn't out of the ones you've seen so far, and tell me, not just with your words, but with your donations to the Ayn Rand Center UK. We are the world's largest producer of objectivist-related content. We bring you literally a whole network from some of the biggest names in objectivism. As I mentioned, Don Watkins, Harry Binswanger, James Valiant, Nikos Sapirokopoulos, Rucka Ali, and so many more from so many different perspectives. Robert Nasir, Amy, so many different voices on this channel. So whether it's £5, £3, $10, 20 shekels, let us know and let the gentleman here who makes this all happen know that it's something that you value. Don't be a freeloader. Jeff Bannister, who's a subscriber here on the channel, says, "Wishful thinking, Robert. A living wage is the go-to phrase these days." Well, what about Chris Christie? Chris Christie's 2016 ill-fated campaign slogan. Thank you, Jeff, very much. Jeff, a very generous contribution, helping us keep the lights on. Well, Jeff, tell me what you think of this one. Chris Christie, "Telling it like it is." I said, that's hot. Telling it like it is. As a campaign slogan, it's not sacrificial. I think there's a bit of reality exists, and I'm dealing with it about that. So I thought that was a pretty good slogan as far as out of all the different potential slogans. I like that from Christie in 2016, telling it like it is. There's an honesty about that I think is pretty hot. Of course, Christie went nowhere as well. What about Gary Johnson in, I guess that was 20, I mean, who knows, he's run so many times, but the libertarian slogan, I guess that was maybe 2008, his slogan was "Live Free." And of course, that's hot. You know, live free should be everyone's campaign slogan in a free society like the UK, like the US, even in a semi-free society. The frustration is that, at least from my perspective now, of course, this is all from my perspective, I'm a student of objectivism, but freedom has lost all meaning anymore. Nobody even knows what it is. No, there's no kind of even concept of freedom. So, and it doesn't help that I think that campaign slogan looks like, that campaign poster looks like Gary Johnson was just released from prison and now he's living free because he just got out of the clink. But, you know, this should be a more appealing slogan, these types of slogans, emphasizing freedom, emphasizing liberty, but they fall on such deaf ears, at least here in the US. But Paris and we think that's hot. And what about Mitt Romney? This is again moving in, as you know, I'm moving in reverse order. We started with Trump and we're going backward now. Mitt Romney, again, I think this is 2008, Believe in America. What do you think? What do y'all think of that? Let me know what you think of the super chat. Believe in America. Is that, could you get behind even that? Put on your advertising director hat for a moment. I'm on the fence, Believe in America. You know, I like the fact that it seems benevolent and positive about America, but belief to me sounded a little too faith-based. Believe. It's like that part in Peter Pan, oh, Tinkerbell, Tinkerbangles, oh, clap and Tink, believe and you think Tink will live. I mean, it doesn't take belief. Belief sounds too passive to me. So I'm on the fence about Romney's believe in America. I can kind of go either way on that one. All right, Obama, who was, as you might know, a pretty popular politician and a pretty major force in American politics in the last 25 years, he engaged in exactly what Bill de Blasio engaged in, which is just this outright explicit, it's collectivism, I suppose. I mean, it's class warfare explicitly. I mean, middle class first, hated it then and hate it now. And it's so anathema. I mean, who comes first under a system of individual rights like the American system? There is no first. We are all equal in front of the law. There is, and so the idea that a politician would explicitly put one class first is revolting to me. I hated it then, but of course the American public ate it up. Thank you, Roland. Roland says, make Aristotelianism gain adherence. MAGA, MAGA. Make Aristotelianism gain adherence. Just thinking how we're going to put that on a sweatshirt. We'll make it happen. I'm sure Razi. Yep. All right. He's got it in production right now. Thank you, Roland. You're such a great supporter. It's people like Roland, people like Kathleen, who is a member here, like Jeff, like Robert, who are keeping us on the air. We're bringing you original programming day after day after day after day. If we're part of your media diet, let us know in the super chat. Let us know at AynRandCenter.co.uk and help out what we're doing. So hated this then and hated it now. Now, what about Bill Barr, another libertarian candidate you don't remember? Barr's 2008 campaign slogan, Liberty for America. That's hot. That is exactly right. Liberty for America. I mean, Bill Barr went nowhere, but liberty. I mean, what a concept. What about the idea of I'm a candidate that's for liberty and putting that forward? I think that was so hot. That was so exciting for me to see, frustrating that, as I'm saying, it's like Bill Barr's Liberty for America went nowhere, but Obama's middle class first, pumped him to the presidency. So we always talk about it's a battle of ideas, and you just see how so many of the ideas that I know many of us in the objectivist community and the objectivist movement believe are so vital to living and vital to prosperity and vital to happiness are of such disinterest, it seems, to most American voters. Obama, 2008. Obama had a lot of good ones. Now, I didn't like middle class first. To me, that's awful. But what about Yes We Can, which wasn't just a campaign slogan, it was a music video. Remember, with Wyclef, and everyone was rapping Yes We Can and Yes We Can, and it was a cultural movement. And I have to say, that's hot. That really worked as a campaign slogan. Now, of course, Obama's politics, I fought against Obama's politics for 8 years on Fox News every week for week after week after week. But Yes We Can, as a optimistic, hopeful, forward-looking campaign slogan, it's effective. And I think is mobilizing, and I think there's something that's, as I said, that's optimistic and motivating about that. That I think it's why Obama won. I think it's about why I won. Now, while Obama was doing Yes We Can, which I thought was, as I said, it's self-sacrificial. Yes, we can, but there's a little bit of selfishness in there, I guess, somewhere. This is what John McCain was doing. And, people love to rag on John McCain. Thank you, Marilyn. Marilyn is the not so-called fairy godmother of the Ayn Rand Center UK. She is our wonderful patron saint, and she helps us keep all this programming coming to you. So thank you, Marilyn, not just for your contributions, but for being part of our conversation and always coming up with great ideas and sharing them in our chats and being part of all of our events and community as well. You remember John McCain's Country First? When I first heard this, I threw up in my mouth. It's horrible. I mean, when you think about it, this was that Christian nationalism occurring in America. He just paved the way. I mean, this is this Trumpist nationalist collectivism. I mean, McCain managed to throw out any semblance of individualism, capitalism, even prosperity or wealth. Country first. This is as explicitly self-sacrificial. I mean, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but you could see like a Hugo Chavez poster, country first. I mean, the country comes before the individual. I mean, this is what every collectivist dictator says. So it was so terrible. McCain was so terrible. And just that type of slogan, when I first heard it, it was just so wrong, so wrong. What about Kerry Edwards? I think we're certainly going backward now. John Kerry and John Edwards, was it? John Edwards was the really shifty, shady senator who ultimately, if you want to Google this, he used to rail against Walmart. Oh, they're taking jobs, but then around Christmas time, he would send his staffer to go to Walmart to get the toys for his family. A stronger America. Hated it. It just blah, just like Kerry and Edwards. John Kerry was blah then, he's blah now. Edwards, just blah. So a stronger America is just, it's one of those things, like if you've ever watched the Peanuts cartoons where rah, 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 you're hearing a sound from the teacher, but there's actually no sound coming out. Stronger America. You might as well say, water bottles America. I don't know. It's like toast America. All right, let's get into some nitty gritty now. Again, moving historically backward. Robert says, a stronger America, a prettier America, a sexier America, a more pungent America. How about this one? You remember this one? I mean, this is when you just have to shake your head and sigh. Bush, I don't know which Bush, there was so many years of Bushes. Marilyn says she couldn't stand McCain. I mean, that slogan was just so wrong, but so was this. I mean, compassionate conservative, hated it. Compassionate conservative. I mean, this is exactly what, if you read Ayn Rand, if you read Harry Binswanger, you're talking about the so-called moral majority. This was, I believe, this is my interpretation, Bush's version of that, like that moral majority. The idea that we've got to cover up the idea that individualism is selfishness, as selfish, that individualism and capitalism is mean. So we're compassionate conservatives. And that, that is what smuggled in this whole notion of, oh, well, conservatism, aka capitalism, that's so dog eat dog, but, we're just compassionate conservatives and just hated it for obvious reasons. I mean, it's giving up your morals. Kathleen says, thanks, JH, for the nice TDO about Her Majesty is the Queen. Well, thank you, Kathleen. It was a fun episode to do. Definitely encourage everyone to check that out and check out all of our previous episodes. Subscribe. You're alerted to the daily live shows. We're available on all the streaming platforms, as well as on the go in terms of iTunes and whatnot. So if you're walking the dog, bring us on the go as well. So this sucked. Compassionate conservative, terrible. Now, what about Clinton? Clinton had a lot of good slogans as well. I mean, don't stop thinking about tomorrow. The song, the Fleetwood Mac song, was a major idea of Clinton's and an optimistic one. Don't stop thinking about tomorrow. I mean, that's a pretty optimistic idea. One of his slogans was build the bridge to the 21st century. And think about that was kind of the time. And I think that's pretty hot. have to say. I think there's something about building a bridge. Think about this is around the turn of the century. It seemed very forward looking at the time. And think about it, this is the Democrat. So it's so not radical. It's so not what we would say now is woke. I mean, this was a very thoughtful, kind of trustworthy centrist now. I mean, now this person looks very much on the right, but like, this wasn't a crazy progressive, burning down the system, burning down capitalism. He was building a bridge. Something about the optimistic about that I think seemed to me very forward looking at the time. What about this one, which I'm sure you don't remember? Maybe you don't even remember Ross Perot. Ross Perot he's deceased now, an independent businessman who ran for president in 1992. If you look it up, he got a major percentage of the vote. He was on the stage for the debates, and he accomplished something that basically has not been accomplished since in American politics. And I think, unfortunately, there's now been rules put in place that make it even more difficult. But his slogan in 92, "I'm Ross, you're the boss," and kind of plays off the fact that Ross Perot was a boss of many companies. He was a CEO, but "I'm Ross, you're the boss." And I say, that's hot. I think that's a great, now let's just because something rhymes doesn't mean it's smart. But I think this got to that individualistic idea, to this American idea that, yeah, it's the people who are the boss. It's not the politicians. I'm Ross, but you're the boss. The people are the boss. And there's something that it was a cowboy hat. There's something very cowpoke and American and individualistic, I think, about that I'm Ross, he's going to be president, but the people are the boss. So we like that. Now, rhyming is going to come up quite a bit in this conversation here today. And I want to thank you for helping us on the super chat. I'm not even going to try to rhyme that, but I want to take this opportunity to invite you to thank us on the super chat. We've got Daniel behind the scenes here, bringing you this show all over the world. We've got Rozzy bringing you all the talent day after day after day from all over the world. I mean, so help us keep that talent on the air. Just because something rhymes doesn't mean it makes any sense. Like George Bush and Dan Quayle don't change the team in the middle of the stream. Hated it. Stupid. I mean, it's like, why would you rhyme anything as inessential as continuity? It's like, if you're going to rhyme something, do it something that is important, but don't change the team in the middle of the stream. It's just like, it's just stupid. And continuity, it's like, continuity is nothing to be cherished, just like conservatism is not. It's just idea free. The only thing they're celebrating is the fact that we've already been here. So hated it. Thank you, Marilyn. Marilyn says she could have a drink with George W. Bush, not with McCain. I could have a drink with any one of them. McCain certainly has a lot of stories and a lot of history, and I have respect for these men as I have respect for anyone who serves, in the sense that I have respect for their office. But these slogans that they all put out, compassionate, conservative, country first, they're so not capitalist. It's just so revolting. And George, the Bushes, it's just had one worse slogan after the next. Now, Pat Buchanan, I was on the radio with years ago, and I never really understood this guy. He kind of puts himself forth as a capitalist, but the one time I was on with him, he was telling me why we needed to bail out the auto companies. This is like back in 2008, I think. He had me on his radio show. And I was like, what are you talking about? This is let these companies go bankrupt. Blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, we're saving American jobs. But in 1992, he was running for president and against Bush. And his slogan was "Down with King George." And I have to say, again, not an endorsement of Buchanan at all, because the more I remember of him and know about him, he seems god-awful, but that's hot. There's a historical allusion there to American rebellion. So it kind of brings you back to some American ideas of, we're against kings and we're down with that. So I thought that was a pretty good slogan and, relevant and not just rhyming for rhyming's sake. Mary Elaine says she doesn't mean she thinks W was a good president. Obviously, of course not. And I appreciate what you're saying. And thank you as always for being such a generous contributor and participant in our conversation, and all of you are participant in our conversation today. So I like this one from Buchanan, Down with King George. This one is a little more difficult. Bush in 92, a proud tradition. I'm on the fence. This is a package deal. I mean, we got Ike, we've got Lincoln, we've got Reagan. We've been kind of throwing all these American leaders in there, kind of, I think, hoping that in your audience's mind, you'll think, well, I like one of these guys, and Bush is kind of like him or that. So, I'm on the fence of this. This is just kind of a blatant appeal to, Teddy Roosevelt. It's kind of a blatant just appeal to, I guess, tradition, a proud tradition. So, I mean, I don't like it. I don't hate it. It's just one of those things that it's like, again, it's like the teacher talking from Peanuts. Rah, rah, it just says nothing. They might as well say a proud pasty stand or like a proud hot dog, or something like that. It just means nothing. All right, now let's try this one that maybe a little more controversial. Jesse Jackson, 1988, Keep Hope Alive. What say you, Chatterati? My 2 cents? That's hot. Now, Jesse Jackson spoke at the 1998 Democratic Convention. He electrified the place. He inspired a lot of young Democratic leaders. I'm not going to get into it, but Keep Hope Alive was a major rallying call at the time. Now, yes, I did meet Jesse at Fox. Actually, I met him a few times, and I thought, fuck it, I got to get a picture, right? I'm not endorsing Jesse's politics at all. But there's something about Keep Hope Alive that is optimistic, it's forward-looking, and it was effective. And he didn't win the presidency, but Obama ran on hope and change, and won. Kathleen, who's been a member for 3 months, she says, for a while in England, all we heard was strong and stable from the most stale, gray people, nonstop for months. It was excruciating, and she lost. Very interesting, strong and stable. Yeah, I mean, it sounds weak and unstable to have to be, and Kathleen, not more than anything, but in addition, thank you for being a member. Kathleen is a member here on YouTube. It's a couple of pounds a month, and she's part of our community. We call her out. She gets VIP access to a lot. So I like Jesse Jackson, Keep Hope Alive. And it's certainly better than anything the Republicans were doing at the time. I mean, at the time, Jesse Jackson was getting people on their feet, keep hope alive. What was the Bushes doing? Oh my God, a kinder and gentler nation. Oh, isn't that sweet? A kinder, hated it. I mean, it's so, just so weak. I mean, and once again, this is my interpretation. This is Bush having to remind us that capitalism isn't mean and nasty. It's kind. Oh no, it's not this mean thing where you're gonna have to go get your own health care. It's a kinder intention. So it was always this having to apologize, I think, for individualism with the Bushes, and always apologize for capitalism, and that's why, and ultimately, as Rand foresaw, bringing in the whole religious right, and look where it's gotten us. Capitalism is as unknown in America now that it's ever been in my lifetime. Now, what about Bill Clinton? I'm sure we've got a lot of Bill Clinton lovers here on the Super Chat. Bill Clinton, again, lots of interesting slogans over his numerous campaigns, but at one point, his slogan was putting people first. Bill Clinton for president, putting people first. What say you? I mean, I kind of think that's hot. Now I want you to say, oh, Jonathan, he's just, but there is something about that that's putting the focus on the people. People, he's not saying, you know, putting poor people first or putting minorities first, putting people first. But would he, the irony is, would he ever say putting individuals first? I mean, at the time McCain was coming up with his country first, I said, I think on Fox one weekend, I said, why doesn't he do individuals first? Make it about individualism. I mean, would Clinton ever say that? Would any politician? I mean, now they would never do that. But, you know, even at the time, could Clinton have said, not putting people first, but putting, Robert, I want to see picture Paris Hilton, putting individuals first. I mean, what a slogan that could have been. And I think it still could be, you know, and that's the idea of putting individuals first. Bonnie says, as Ayn Rand said in a different context, do they want us to think they deal with people rather than animals? What about Reagan? There's a lot of Reagan to choose from. Reagan's famous one, or one of his more famous ones, was this idea of, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And the idea was, you know, are you better or worse than you were 4 years ago? I think this is the first time around, actually. So I guess it was, I forget, or is this his re-election? I don't remember if this was he was saying better or worse. I guess it was his re-election. Regardless, I'm kind of on the fence about this. It's used a lot now. I mean, you know, people, even President Trump's sufficient supporters recently have said this. I like that it's kind of reality based, but I also think that you cannot judge a leader by the Dow Jones Industrial Average. And I don't think that politics is good just because the markets go up or just because there's more money in your pocket. I think, you know, it has to be about philosophical ideas, not about, you know, vote for me because the Dow's up. I think that's, so I think this is a little bit cheap, if you will, to try to work that. Again, we're moving backward now. Not just peanuts, vote Carter. Jimmy Carter for president. Hated it. Just, I mean, was it, I know it was such a novelty, I guess, at the time that he was a peanut farmer and everything was like, oh, peanut this, peanut that, peanut this. It just seemed kind of foolish. I don't know, it seemed kind of devoid of ideas, certainly. And I guess if the idea was it's not peanuts, meaning it's not just junk, there's something really there, maybe, you know, I like this a little bit more. The re-election campaign was, you know, they looked kind of like young, more ambitious. I mean, those could easily look like today's young Democratic politicians, a tested and trustworthy team. That was Carter Mondale, but kind of boring, non-committal. I think Marilyn said parabum. It's exactly right. Robert's mentioning that Carter deregulated a surprising amount of stuff. I mean, look, I was on Fox this morning. I'll just say, talking about, I mean, read Carter's speech in 1978. He had major austerity. He had a hiring freeze. He was talking about cutting government spending. I mean, he deregulated trucking, air traffic control, stock commissions. And it was Reagan who brought religion to the White House. Absolutely, absolutely. Now, what about this one? You probably don't remember. Shirley Chisholm, 1972, for president. Shirley Chisholm, bringing us, US, together. Her campaign slogan was unbought and unbossed. And for me, and I don't know a lot about Shirley Chisholm, although I did watch a documentary about her a number of years ago, that's hot. I think it's a great slogan. If you know anything about Shirley Chisholm, she was certainly a radical voice, female, African-American, and very sharp at the time. And I think unbought and unbossed is a very smart, effective, you know, you should watch this doc. Again, abhorrent politics, as I remember, but you know, you wish you saw smarter young progressives these days, progressives that weren't just simply emotionalists. And unbought and unbossed, I think, is a very hot slogan that brought Shirley Chisholm a lot of momentum. Now, Miss Rand was a fan of Richard Nixon. I believe she voted for Richard Nixon. And we have to consult with Shoshana and many others. Why during this period they had to insist on so many dick jokes, I don't understand. There was so much happening in the country at the time. Why did we need slogan, my pick is dick? It's horrifying. And then of course the other side, who was against Nixon, said Dick Nixon before he dicks you. I mean, it's horrifying. And they went to town with this. These are all campaign. You can't lick our dick. They can't lick our dick. We like dick. Well done, Dick. I mean, come on. Terrible. And they finally got something that at least is, safe for prime time. President Nixon now more than ever. President Nixon now more than Nixon now more than ever. That was a pretty popular one for a long time. I mean, at least it's not a dick joke. All right. So what about McGovern-Eagleton? You don't remember this one real well. Democrats, I believe 72, McGovern-Eagleton, come home again. That sounds like something you would see from a Republican, right? Kind of appeal to tradition, appeal to coming home. And I don't know much about George McGovern, but to his credit, this was the theme of his acceptance speech. And I think it's hot because although I'm sure I hate these politics, the idea was come home to ideas. There was an ideological base that he was building off of here. And I have to give him credit for that there's something ideological come home, and there was something there that was an appeal, not just, I think it sounds like not just blind tradition, but to ideological principle, as bad as it could be. Now, what about Barry Goldwater? In your heart, you know he's right. And I know you agree with me when you say, that's hot. Miss Rand and many people who were associated with her at the time were fans of Barry Goldwater, as I understand it. I think it's the last candidate that Miss Rand spoke favorably about. And the idea was, as I've read and understand it, is that in your heart, you know he's right, was that, these ideas aren't that radical. He was the extremist Barry Goldwater, but in your heart, you know he's right, was kind of like, look, in your heart, you know that he's not so extremist. So I think it's hot. Chris Smith says Goldwater is the candidate of the future, from your mouth to God's ears. And there is no God, so we'll see how that goes. Now, let's just start scraping the bottom of the friggin' barrel. Actually, I think it almost fell off the cliff, or I should say, in your heart, you know he's right was a major step up, because as we get earlier and earlier, I mean, I don't know, maybe people were less sophisticated back then in the 50s and 40s, but Adlai Stevenson, wherever he is, not him, but his copywriter should be turning over in his grave. Adlai and Estes, the bestest. Adlai and Estes, the bestest. Adlai and Estes, the bestest. Are you fucking kidding me? I mean, rhyming is dumb, but you're gonna rhyme for that? Adlai and Estes, the bestest. Just fucking stupid. So hated it. And Adlai could not get out of his own way. Never elected president with these kind of slogans. Robin says the very bestest. I'm Adlai for Adlai. fucking. I'm Adlai for Adlai. What? Now, what about the most well-known rhyming presidential slogan, I like Ike. I mean, almost couldn't do it, but hated it. I'm sorry, hated it. It's just simple as it gets, and it's just devoid of ideas. I like Ike. I like ice cream. I like nachos. I like hot wings. I mean, I like a lot of things. So it's just as simple as it gets. It's devoid, as Chris says. It's better than I like Dick Button. But they couldn't, like, what did they come up with next time around? I still like Ike. I mean, this is what is called when you just give up. I like Ike. Oh, all right. What are we gonna do next time around? Well, I still like Ike. I just void of ideas. Hated it. Now, what about this one? Harry S. Truman. Robert says, I like Ike's work, no content, but it's simply displaying the name and proclaiming support. I mean, it did. He won. What about Harry Truman? The buck stops here. What do you think of the buck stops here? I think that's hot. That is a great slogan, and it became a cultural part of the cultural, lexicon. It speaks to responsibility. It speaks to honesty. These are presidential qualities. The buck stops here. And I don't know if you know that in the UK or around the world as much as we know, but that used to be a very fundamental, as Chris is saying, about accountability, and those ideas associated those ideas with Americanism, with the American presidency. The irony is, if you remember, just I guess 2 years ago now, President Trump was asked whether the buck stops with him over COVID. His response: the buck stops with everyone. So we'll just leave that and let you interpret where we've come. Now, as I said, I thought we were, slogans got better as the years going on. And we're going now earlier in time to get just sillier. Again, I don't know, like, it seems like, I know reading comprehension, I think, was better back then, but slogan creativity was not. For Dewey, well, do we or don't we? I mean, hated it. Just do we or don't we? Do we or don't we? Do we? I mean, it's just like, what was it? What if his name was Beelzebub? What would you do then? I mean, it's just stupid, just dumb. And even Calvin Coolidge, who was a great president, as I understand it. I never finished Amity Shale's book, but Coolidge's guys couldn't come up with something more ideological than keep cool with Coolidge. I mean, keep cool. This is something they sell cigarettes with. Keep cool. Keep cool with, Pepsi free. I mean, so hated it. Sorry, Calvin Coolidge, hated it. Calvin has a cool edge. I mean, it's just stupid. So non-ideological. I guess this is the idea at the time, but hated it. Now, Wendell Wilkie, people who are students of Ayn Rand know that Miss Rand actually volunteered for Wendell Wilkie's presidential campaign. She gave speeches on his behalf, and this is written in many places. I mean, it's in Song of Russia. It's a lot of places. So definitely want to learn a bit about that. And Wendell Wilkie, if you look at some of his slogans and some of his buttons at the time, yeah, Christopher was saying he didn't know that. There's one quote of Miss Rand is saying something about they were doing speeches in a theater. And she said something to the effect of, I was doing 5 shows a day, because I guess they would have people come in. The speakers would all do a show, then have another group come in, do a presentation. So she was doing speeches. So Wendell Wilkie's was against a 3rd or 4th term for Roosevelt. No 3rd term, no royal family, no indispensable men. So these were ideas of, I think, as I interpret it, kind of Americanism. No endless presidencies, no monarchies, no indispensable men that everything revolves around. And I think that's hot. Ms. Rand I think that was hot. She didn't use those terms, but I think it's pretty hot. And, Roosevelt and relief, Wilkie and work. So it's against a monarchy, it's against relief, and for work. So I think these are positive, cool slogans. No 3rd term, I think, is a cool slogan. it says it and wasn't effective for Wendell Wilkie, but we can like it all the same. Now, here's one of the best ones from the Prohibition era. Al Smith ran for president. This is true. This is absolutely true. On repealing liquor prohibition, vote for Al Smith and make all your wet dreams come true. That's perfect. Just perfect. Brilliant. Now, why couldn't I like Ike guys talk to this guy? Now, this one I actually also liked. You don't remember James Cox? He was a Democratic presidential candidate. I don't remember what year, certainly in the early part of the 20th century. James Cox presidential, notice James Cox did not go for the obvious with his name. He could have done what Dick Nixon did. No. Thankfully, he went for something I think pretty cool, especially for a Democrat. Peace, progress, prosperity. I think that is a very thoughtful campaign slogan. I mean, I'd love to see someone do that. That's hot. That's hot. So James Cox, your campaign failed, but we can appreciate that as I think a pretty optimistic and, I mean, these Democratic slogans would look so right-wing now, right? Although this one certainly looks pretty left-wing. President Wilson, vote for 8-hour Wilson. So he was running specifically on the idea of mandating an 8-hour day. Hated it, obviously. I mean, it's voting on totalitarianism. It's so devoid of ideas. It's about voting to take over the rights of people to engage and how they want to live, whether it be to hire or to work. So hated it. But my favorite, we're going to end with the first one and my favorite, which was Martin Van Buren. I couldn't find a campaign button of his. His slogan was independent treasury and liberty, 1840. Martin Van Buren. Independent treasury and liberty. I think these are things worth celebrating, worth protecting, and Martin Van Buren should be celebrating for that. That's hot. That's hot. Martin Van Buren, you're hot for that slogan. Thank you for joining us today. We went a little longer than we thought, but we wanted to get through so many slogans and bring them to you. We're only able to do that because of your contributions. The Ayn Rand Center UK exists because of our members. You have to go to aynrandcenter.co.uk, become a member. It's £5 or something pounds a month, £10 a month, and you're keeping, as I said, the biggest producer of objectivist-related content in the world in history. We bring you a daily network of objectivist content. I mean, look what's coming up tonight at 7 p.m. UK, Finance Friday with Jim Brown. Jim Brown is a very successful businessman, American businessman. He has sold many companies. He's invested millions and millions of dollars. He's advised major endowments. He's giving you a finance lesson today only because you're helping us out. You're with £5, £3, £2 on the super chat. We need it from you. We need that if you want to keep us on the air. Jim Brown is coming up at 7 p.m. UK. The trouble with tightening. We're going to talk about what's happening globally with the markets, which have been absolutely getting annihilated. And then at 8 p.m. UK, it's Keeping It Real with James Valiant and Robert Nasser on purpose, productivity, and passion, and Peikoff as well. So they're always bringing in Dr. Peikoff's writing, bringing in Miss Rand's philosophy, Miss Rand's ideas. And so that's what we're doing here. We're all learning about objectivism together with some of the brightest minds, some of the best supporters out there, and part of a really exciting global movement. So thank you for being part of what we're doing, supporting us on the super chat. Now I'll give the last call. I've been told to give that last call. So we'll ring that bell for last call. I guess in the UK, there really is no last call. Or I guess when you end, but then you start right over again. So I guess there really is no last call. That's been my experience. Don't. Joking, of course. We appreciate all your support in every currency around the world. Keep it tuned here, ring the bell, share this show, and thank you for being part of what we're doing. So stay tuned for Finance Friday with Jim Brown, 7 p.m. UK. We'll see you back here Monday at this time for more of the Daily Objective from the Ayn Rand Center UK. From Jonathan Hoenig and all of us here at the Daily Objective, we're wishing you best premises.